Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking, an elevated missions prep incorporated company. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest is an international best-selling author of the book Role of Love. He recognizes that God is the author of true love. However, growing up in an abusive home, what he learned as love was skewed. But once he actively pursued what love was and what it meant, he created a new way to demonstrate the principles of love languages so that we are all able to recognize and respond appropriately when love comes our way. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Mr. Paul Zolman. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Jackie. Pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely. I think this is so interesting. Most people have heard of the love languages, the five love languages, but you decided to do a little something different. And I love what you decided to do. But before we get into that, as well as your book, tell us about your background and what it was that you learned about love growing up.
Thank you, Jackie. I think that's a great question. When we learn backstories of how things happened or how things came together, then I think we have a lot of better understanding. And for my backstory, I really kind of have to go back to my grandfather because that's as far as I know. That he was in Indiana and had 9 children back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And then suddenly his wife passed away after that ninth child. He was distraught, as many people would be, having the loss of their spouse and then 9 children to take care of. So distraught, in fact, that he sold the farm, he sold all the equipment, and then when people came to pick up the equipment or their land or just the auction, whatever it was, he said, "And would you like this child? And would you like this child? Would you like this child?" Till he systematically gave all the children away except for one. He took that one child with him. His name was Benjamin, took him to Montana, and he found a single woman. She was a school teacher. Her name was Grace, and he married her, had 10 more children, of which my father is number 6. Here you are, we have 19 children now. And then when my father's 10 years old, this grandfather passed away. So 19 children now that feel abandonment issues. Of course, death there's nothing you can do about that abandonment. But that first abandonment, just some bad judgment on his part or whatever it was that he just gave those children away. It was traumatic for their life, and just there were things like that happened throughout the family. It was just kind of passed on. My father, when he was 10 years old, he was born in 1922, so he's 10. It's 1932, the right at the middle of the Great Depression, and so economic things are also pressures on this new family of 10 children. He could not finish school because of those financial pressures, and so just graduated from 8th grade and then became a truck driver. So as a truck driver, and that's all I knew that he was a truck driver, and he was gone during the week. On weekends, he'd come home and date my mother every Friday night. I love this about my father. Every Friday night, he had a date with my mother, and it was just a great example for me of just goodness in that way. But was always the same venue. He was not very creative in that way. It was always the same venue. It was always the Maverick Bar. It was always over alcohol. And so I'm number 10 of 11 children. So my father kind of scaled it down from his father. His father had 19 children. He only had 11, and just smaller families, you know. And I only have 8 children, so it's just sizing it down a little bit. When they got to, I imagine my mother started at the oldest child and then just went down the line. So my father's getting annoyed to the point he's ready to flash. And then the name Paul comes up, and that's me. And so he's really anxious at that time. I'm the only boy that's actually sandwiched between 2 girls. All the rest are boys. And so if I did anything, you know how he valued women, because he took my mother out every Friday night. He highly valued women in that way. So the girls, I felt, got extra attention, but because I'm that thorn in between 2 roses, I was getting the brunt of everything. So if I looked at them cross-eyed or just did anything that made them upset or angry, I would get the belt or I'd get spanked. And I remember one time, Jackie, that I was spanked so severely one time that I was black and blue for more than 3 weeks. It was just heartbreaking that was the type of atmosphere that I lived in. I was so distraught with that myself that after my junior year of high school, I was 17 years old, decided I would move and I'd get out of that situation, just move, and moved in with my brother. 6 months later, his company transferred him down to California. And so I stayed with my brother for that time. While I'm gone, I decided, there's got to be a way that I can keep that fifth commandment of the 10 commandments to honor my father and my mother. So I decided, well, what if I wrote them a letter? What if I tried to keep that communication going? And so I started writing them letters, and I wrote letters once a week. After a couple of years, I thought, am I going to keep this up? And I thought, this kind of is a good habit. I really like this habit of writing them letters and keeping in touch. So I kept the habit, and I did it for 32 years until both of them had passed away. My father passed away on his 65th birthday, and my mother passed away when she was 88. But late in her years, I remember her telling me that she expected that letter on Thursdays every week. And when I could see her in her 80s walking down to the mailbox trying to just to make sure that there was a letter there from me. And it was just just touched my heart that she would think that way. And over those years, a lot of that animosity that I felt as a child just dissipated. It just kind of went away. A lot of it, but not all of it. I still had the same problem that my father had, and my brother had it as well. Many of my siblings had it, that we'd be annoyed, we'd be annoyed, we'd be annoyed, we'd be annoyed, and then we'd flash. And so just fast forward about 15 years ago, that flashing caused the demise, or been part of the cause of the demise of my first marriage. After 8 children, and that I had the children, I had primary custody of the children, and it was just really a hard situation. And then it came to a point that I was looking for someone else to be a spouse, and my older sister, was living 7 hours away from me, and said she had a neighbor. And I just before that, I'd been doing a lot of destination dating, traveled to have dates in a lot of different places, Jacksonville, Florida, New York City, Nashville, Kansas City, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Cabo San Lucas, Las Vegas, a lot of different cities that I went to for dates. Couldn't find anything that way. And so I was done with destination dating. I spent more than $10,000 just in a year and a half. It was kind of a midlife crisis. I was having a lot of fun, but wasn't finding any relationship, long-term relationships. And so when my sister called and she's 7 hours away, I said, "Nah, I don't think so." And she said, "Oh, come on." And so you got to do what big sister says. So I start dating or start corresponding just mostly through email and messenger with this woman that was my sister's neighbor. We came pretty close that way. Then I decided to move up to where my sister was at. And then we started dating, and it was time that we felt really good about the relationship. I was going to take her to get big brother approval now, and he was 300 miles north. So we went there. First thing that happened when we went in the house is that my sister-in-law pulls her aside and said, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I denied it, and it made me mad. I thought, she nailed it. And from that, I realized that from that time, I had a couple of choices. Either I was going to continue where I was at, or I was going to just change that perception. And I decided I wanted to change that perception of the Zolman family once and for all. Didn't want to do that anymore. So I started reading the color code, and I started reading the 5 love languages and settled on the principles of the 5 love language. I loved that Dr. Chapman took those 5 love languages and made sure that it reconciled to the life of Jesus Christ. I really absolutely love that part about it, and then so what I did was I contacted Dr. Chapman, possibly making a different application, because I couldn't get it, Jackie. I just couldn't get the understanding. You mean, Jackie, I'm supposed to guess what your love language is and cater to you, and they're calling that love? I came from a different environment, and that wasn't love, and that didn't sound like love either to me. So I thought I was just searching for something a little bit better. Then Dr. Chapman has this little survey that you take that you can identify your own love language. Then what? What are you supposed to do with that, Jackie? Advertise? I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just very awkward. Or, hello, Jackie, I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? It just could be very, very difficult situation. So that didn't work for me either. And it just didn't sound like love. It sounded more like a manipulation or a duty bound that I'm telling you now you've got to do it. And then you get to the unintended pity party that says, well, I told you how to love me. How come you're not doing it? And it's just, I didn't even want to go that direction. So I contacted Dr. Chapman and said, would you license those icons to me? Because I remember as a child, even though we're a very dysfunctional family, I remember as a child liking games and thinking that the games would bring the families together. And they did. They brought us together, but mostly in my family it was smack talk. It was like locker room talk. It was just not nice, but it was fun playing the games just to see if you prevail or not. And he sent back a response with his attorney and said, no, they're not licensing those icons. And frankly, they hadn't updated them for a long time. I don't know if they're the original icons or not, but they were just really dated. So I didn't really want to use them anyway. So I contacted a intellectual property attorney, a copyright attorney here in my town. And he said that theory is not copyrightable. Application is. So I was going to use the theory of the love languages and make it a game. So that's what I did. I made the icons my own, got a copyright for that, then put it together and made it a game. And this is the game here. This is it. So it's just a very simple game. It's the dice. These are the words. That's time, service, gift, and then touch. So 5 love languages, 6 sides on the dice. The last side is what I call surprise me. So there's just 2 instructions. You roll the die every day. That's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. So when I read the book, I thought, well, if it's just to significant others, I'm single. I don't have any significant others. What am I going to do? And I thought, well, I'll just give it to everybody. And so that's the whole idea. You just give it to everybody because just to your significant other is more like a part-time job, in my mind, Jackie, because you're not with your significant other all the time, but you're usually with someone most of the time, or all the time you're with someone. It's different people. So just to keep that consistent character, just love sending it out all the time. And I found that direction was really important. I can't bid love to come my way, but I can send it out and I have control over sending it out. The second thing that I only have control over is receiving it. So when it comes my way, I can see it. Hopefully I can see it. This changes the whole game about it. That as you roll the die and you're rolling it, it's going to be different every single day, or maybe the same couple days, but mostly different. But you're going to go through all 5 love languages over a 30-day period. That you'll learn them backwards and forwards, how to give it away. When you've done that, it improves your vision so that you can see it when it comes your way. And that's different than what Dr. Chapman does in that way, because Dr. Chapman suggests that people like to give away what they like to receive. So that they're looking for the reciprocity. It's not like that anymore. You're giving it away without any expectation of coming back. But when it does come back, you ought to be able to recognize it. So learning all 5 love languages kind of gives you a peripheral view instead of it just being your own love language, the only thing you like. It's not about you anymore. Sorry. It's about them. And so when they send it your way, you say, oh, that's not my primary love language, but I recognize it as love. You can respond appropriately.
I think that's the most important part, is that you hit it the nail on the head, which is we like to receive what we give. But you're giving people an opportunity to recognize what other people are actually giving them love, even though that's not their love language. And I think that's important because people say they don't really love me. But really what it is they're not loving you in the way that you desire for them to love you. But if you recognize that they are loving you in this particular way, then you can say, oh, they do love me. They just want to do it this way. Where have you found that has just hit home so perfectly for people, like where you've seen major changes because people are starting to recognize that I am receiving love, but it's just in a different way?
Well, I think that the communication that Dr. Chapman was trying to get across, that the couples communicate and that people communicate in that way, is very important. We all need to communicate a lot better, and that recognition that you're talking about there is really what we do. So the way that this, instead of taking the survey and say, pause this relationship, could you take this survey so I know how to love you? You don't have to do that anymore. That's a little awkward anyway, so you wouldn't have to do that. So what you're watching for as you're practicing the love languages every day, whatever you rolled that day, you're sending it out and you're watching for people to light up. When they light up, that's what they like. So you take a mental note, wash, and then wash, rinse, repeat. Do that over and over again. That's what they like. And then as you keep sending it out, I found that the survey sometimes is skewed because there's a couple here locally that tried this, and she said that she was service. She wanted things done around the house. It never made her happy, according to her husband. But then they started rolling the die. She lights up when the words, when she's complimented, when he says you're beautiful, when those are the things that really light her up. So I think that the lighting up and the observation of watching people light up is a whole lot more accurate. It's going to help the relationship a lot better than to just try to suppose that they like service. They're not saying anything about it. They're not lighting up, but they say they like service.
Yeah, I like that because I feel like it's a reflection of Jesus when he's recognizing the actual need. You know, sometimes when we look at Bible stories, they're bringing people to Jesus to be healed. And people are looking for this physical healing, but there needs to be a spiritual healing as well. And I feel like that is kind of what you are doing with your book and your game. And I know that when I was reading up about you, you said children are even able to display this. And I have a heart for children and work with children. So tell me how you have seen a difference among the children.
Well, there's a couple stories I have about that. I tested it with a family of 5 children. The youngest was 4 years old, and his name's Jonathan. Jonathan, one day he rolled physical touch, and as you mentioned, that Jesus in miracles, he touched people's eyes so they could see, he touched their ears so they could hear, but physical touch was part of the ministry. When Jonathan rolled physical touch, he pumps his fists up and down, jumps up and down, and says, "Yes, physical touch, physical touch." And he immediately starts to beat up on his brothers. And his mother tried to stop the laughter, just tried to stop. You can't laugh, can't encourage that type of behavior. But it was just funny. But what it became was a teaching moment for that mother, saying, "No, Jonathan, this is appropriate physical touch. This is,"
Right.
and it's the high five, the fist bumps, the hugs, and the pats on the cheek, whatever it is, those are appropriate physical touch. And so it becomes a teaching moment for the children, number one. Secondly, just think of this in a classroom, Jackie. If at the beginning of the day, I'm talking K through 6, because they're in the same classroom most of the day. They start in the same classroom, they usually end in the same classroom. It's not that way everywhere, but most places it is. So at the beginning of the day, they roll the die. Say, class, it takes 2 seconds to do this. So it's not taking a lot of teaching time away from the teacher. The teacher explains, well, class, this is the love language that we're practicing today. And so all day long, the children are watching for opportunities. When it gets to the end of the day, they're going to record in a journal what they rolled, what opportunities they saw to love in that way, and what they did about those opportunities. And to the teachers, I supply a PDF of that journal page so they can print as many as they need for their class. So this is just the cost of the die that they'd have to have for their classroom. But just think of that. Now you're teaching responsibility to these children, that they're responsible for their actions. I blamed my father, Jackie, until I was about age 35 for any disruptive relationships that I had. Anything that went wrong was all because of him. Well, at age 35, he'd been gone. He'd passed away 7 years earlier. And I finally woke up one day and thought, I'm responsible. So now these children don't have to wait till they're 35 like I did. They can find out in first grade or kindergarten or second grade or third grade or fourth grade. They can find out that, oh yeah, I'm responsible for my actions. I'm going to send out love, and then I'm going to record it. And locally, I've got a franchisee of Yogurtland that is, if they'll record it for 15 days of the month, he'll give them 5 ounces of yogurt for free. If they'll record it for 25 days or more, then he'll give them 10 ounces of yogurt for free. So there's a little
Wow.
incentive for them to do that as well, but it's also a pass fail type situation. And then it's just a check mark that the teacher does, and then they hand it back. Hopefully, those parents will put those journal pages into a journal so that at the end of the year, who wouldn't love to have a loving journal from first grade or second grade or fourth grade, whatever grade it is? What a treasure that would be for that child, from that child's point of view, say, what was there to love and what did I do about it?
Yeah, and I love the crossover application because we should be able to do this in all aspect of our lives because love belongs in all aspect of our lives.
Absolutely, everywhere.
Yeah. So what is next for you, Paul?
I am working, still developing this. I'm putting together an app. Hopefully, it'll be on the phone that people can have this the roll of the dice with them all the time. I've already got that filmed. Everything's done that way, and then with that, it'll give them 4 or 5 different suggestions of what they could do that day in that genre. It'll give them maybe a scripture and maybe a quote from a famous person that applies to that particular genre of love for that day. That's what I'm working on right now. Next year, it'll be workshops, and then I'll be doing some workshops and some. I'm not sure how that looks like yet because I'm still working on it, still trying to put together different things that I would want to teach people about how to improve their loving skills. And that's the whole thing about it, Jackie, is just if we increase our loving skills and send more love out, it's going to spread around the world, and we're going to tamp down a lot of the violence and a lot of that misbehavior that's going on in the world. People are so get enraged so quickly, so just at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's a bad thing. We can counteract this with love.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. How can people connect with you and your products?
They can connect with me at my website. Is probably the best spot. It's rolloflove.com. Kind of a play on the words, Jackie. ROLL is what you do with the dice on the outside of you. ROLE is changing you within. That's what the website is. ROLE of love.com. And they can buy the books, both the book, the journal, and the die.
Yeah, and I love how you are scaling your business to spread it out and give people more options of how they can connect with you. As we wrap up your interview, Paul, what is the one thing that you want to leave with the audience? The one thing that they can implement today?
From the Sanskrit dialect in northern India, we get a lot of really good words for English. We get nirvana, we get karma, but we also get a word that I really like. It's called namaste. Namaste is what the yoga classes, how they kind of end the yoga class. But the real meaning of namaste is really kind of what we're trying to accomplish with the die too. And the true meaning in the Hindu, from a Hindu standpoint, means that the God in me sees the God in you, or the divine in me sees the divine in you. And if we can get to that mindset, Jackie, get to a mindset of what's right about you, what can I love about you, rather than ever going down that path to say what's wrong with you, that's the mindset we want to get to. I can guarantee, and it worked for me, guarantee that you can get to that mindset if you roll the die for 30 days. Just develop that habit of rolling the die at least 30 days and then just continue to do it. You'll be so busy watching for what's good about people and magnifying those good things and enlarging those good things and what you can love about those people. You won't have time to go down that critical path. We're not their judge anyway. Jesus Christ, of course, is their judge. Let him do his job. Just do your job to send love out. That's what we're here for.
I love it. CWS audience, you have heard Paul. It is time to expand how we give away love. You have to connect with him because if you're struggling in your life or know anyone who's struggling to receive love, this is a pathway that they can utilize to be able to move forward. And I love the fact that he's saying that we should be able to see the God in each other. We are all God's creation. And what are you looking when you look at someone? What are you seeing? Are you seeing them or are you seeing the God in them? And if you're only seeing them and the flaws that they have, how are you going to be able to love them correctly? So it's time to expand how we love people and put more love out into the world. We are the difference makers. If we want to see a change in the world, we are the ones that have to start. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.